Southfield Fire Police, Lathrop, management folks, to be able to better determine what's gonna be best for us to continue to provide a response.
Thank you. Let's say this berm gets open. How do we continue to restrict cut-through traffic? Like, the intention is to ease travel for public safety and fire. How do you handle like general vehicular?
Well, that's not his issue,
Right.
that's our issue.
Yeah, so what we would do on at the city council level, we'd create a traffic control order, and you guys would enact that, which would give us the authority to, look for vehicles and ticket vehicles if they are entering off there. We would have signs posted that say authorized emergency vehicles only. Those would be posted well in advance and, things like that. So it would make it an actually enforceable local ordinance for us as well.
That means you have to monitor.
Correct.
So that's,
Yeah.
is that gonna change like the patrols that you're already doing? You're gonna have to like go to that area
Yep.
more often, take attention off of other parts of the city as a result?
Well, I mean, through the course of our day, I mean, it would be part of our traffic enforcement. We have to go around when we have free time and get over there and enforce it.
Okay. Or sometimes when you don't have free time, you gotta go anyway.
That's
Okay. I know that we've heard from residents in that area the last time we considered this request from SFD to open up that berm. And people that live right over there were not happy about it because they're concerned about cut-through traffic, increased traffic patterns. I mean, as Jason here said, they're gonna have backups that are already happening on the mile roads and on Evergreen, and so naturally, just like water goes to the open area, more traffic's gonna come through that area. So, how do we make sure that we're not creating another problem by opening up?
Well, I
that
guess
berm?
it'd be an unintended consequence, but the more important thing is we put traffic control orders in place and signs in place and that they're enforced, that would curtail any type of use of that opening.
Okay. How are we gonna measure that? By runs, reports?
We can measure it by actual citations issued or traffic stops made, which are all easily measurable through our report writing software and things like that.
Because if we're gonna do something like that, we should make sure it's effective, that's all. How much is it gonna cost to do this? And if it's temporary, how much is it gonna cost to undo it?
Off the face of it, it's probably gonna be a couple $1,000. For our crews, they believe they can remove it. At that point, it just becomes what type of material we're gonna put down. Realistically, we'll probably just remove the berm, remove the fence, just put gravel down for the time being, signs for a few $100. But then if this does run for 2 years, then we're gonna have that conversation of, hey, are we gonna truly concrete this, asphalt it? How are we gonna do it? I know we had the conversation earlier this year of putting up the gates. This could potentially lead to that, even though that's quite expensive. But it's gonna run us a couple $1,000 at least, just in materials to make it a drivable lane.
Okay. Well, that's a good estimate. It'd be nice to have a more firm number before making a decision on it. Alternatives. Are there any alternatives other than just removing the berm that have been considered? I don't even know what they would be, other than what you just mentioned, gates. Key activated
On the
gates.
west end of the city, we actually have no other roads that lead back into. We have the condos that completely block off, and then further north it actually turns into
Yeah, this is the only road that you.
So San Jose is actually the only road on the west end that would offer us access for emergency vehicles.
Yeah, the alternative is to put the gate in, what we've talked about, but that's $180,000 or something like that, I think the last estimate.
Might be a little less than that, but yeah, for siren activated gate, yeah,
Yeah.
it's quite expensive.
$180,000 for siren.
I'm thinking.
Well, but I think it was for all the other work, for the paving.
Yeah, the entire project. It
The
was
entire
great.
project, I was talking about the gate.
Yeah.
Something like that, I was maybe I'm off, but that
Well,
number-
we're not, I mean, that would require a bid, and it's a much longer
Right,
process, we
right.
need to come up with a solution quicker. The letter from Chief Menifee said something at the end about public support. So it says, there are residents expressing concern about the extent of delays due to the road closures. I imagine in that specific area. Who are these people?
So I would say that's probably.
Because I'm not hearing from them.
That was probably more generalized, because we know what we saw, or we experienced as residents that we've heard complain about just construction in general. I know some of our crews have heard it when we've been on calls, like, well, it took you a while to get here. Well, yes, because there's construction going on and we had to detour around. and stuff like that. So I don't know specific names or whatnot, I just know comments that have been made, is what he referenced.
The only reason I bring it up is because we have heard in this council's meetings, the last time we were considering this, when we looked at the siren activated gate, that people were really against it because they're very comfortable with the traffic patterns that are
Sure.
already there. And I get it's one side versus, one side of the issue versus the other side of the issue, and obviously we need to increase the focus on public safety, especially given the current road closure situation, so I'm just bringing it up as a concern that we've heard voice. Those are all the questions I have.
Jason, they're asking you to speak up.
Sorry? Somebody wants me to speak up. Okay, sorry. I'm done with my questions.
Any other questions?
So the next action step is just basically a TCO
Well, I think
at our March meeting.
Well, council should also, pass a resolution that
Right.
temporarily, or however long you anticipate it, unclosing that portion, San Jose Boulevard.
Anything else? Hearing none, moving to the city council meeting tonight. Thank you. It was, thank you so much for
You're very
coming. Don't leave yet though, because we're gonna have public comment and we might have some questions coming. Please don't leave, please. We'll have some questions. For the city council meeting times, it came up where, to reconsider going back to having our city council meetings starting at 7 o'clock instead of 7:30, because we found that we were kind of hanging around. And I know that we had, a few meetings before where they kind of, the study session ran over. That was the reason why it's on the,
So are you saying to start the study session a half an hour earlier as well, or no?
No.
You're just saying
So
an hour for the
6.
study session instead of an hour and a half?
only because it's been where our study sessions have been over by what, 7, maybe even 6:30 sometimes. And we're hanging around for a while, and it makes for the staff to have a long day and kind of waiting around, so it's kind of trying to, we got,
My only concern about starting the council meetings a half an hour earlier is that if we have a lot of items that we need to address in a study session, we'll end up having to rush to closure of the study session.
Which we used to do a lot, which is why we moved it.
well,
back.
we didn't, to me, it wasn't a lot, I would say, it wasn't a lot. We did a
Yeah, I
couple
remember
times.
like the council comments at the end kind of got rushed a lot of times, or had to be postponed till the.
Before you can finish this council comments, in the other meeting, I think we should just start being a little bit conscious of staff that's hanging around, for 45 minutes, or, meetings are starting to go into the 10 o'clock hour, and we should have them done earlier. And I think that'll be noted, there's a lot on the study session, I think you can, ahead of time, say the meeting's gonna start earlier,
Or start the study session earlier.
yeah. I think there should be some flexibility instead of just being, like, meeting starts at 7:30.
I mean, I guess I just, personally, I think I would prefer to have, 15, 20 minutes where we could just interact with the residents in between, or just, as opposed to having to rush through a study session to get the things done that we need to get done. I mean, I guess if we're worried about the staff, I mean, we could.
It's not just staff, but there's other people also, like, when I talk to Jaylen, and for myself, and when you work all day, and then you come, you're kinda like, I'm working right there, and then you stop, and you wait for a half an hour, or for one day we were here, I don't think you were here, 45 minutes, or something to that extent, waiting till the 7:30 hour.
Yeah, I guess, what I was gonna say is, then, if you wanna get out of here earlier, we could start the study session at 5:30, and then start the council meeting at 7, and then we'll be out at a half an hour early, and still give us enough time to do the study session if we need it, and if we don't, then we, like I said, to me personally, it's not a big deal to, if we're done 15 minutes early, to just hang out until we start.
Well, I don't know, we normally, from historical standpoint, we did start at 5:30, I don't know how that kinda, we got together at
We used to do
5:30.
dinner was 5:30,
Right.
and then the meeting started at 6.
Yep, but we were already together, you could interact with the residents, and then it was I just think that we're going into a really late hour now. being respectful of other people and myself.
I'm not against it. I agree that we can, make adjustments by either starting study sessions earlier or scheduling them to end later and then pushing the council start times if we have agendas that are gonna be very full.
I just like that, I appreciate that, I just think of that being more fluid in the start.
I'm okay with flexibility. I just don't wanna be rushed, that's it. Like, I really wanna make sure that if we identify that there's gonna be either, agenda items that will take more time to discuss, or sense that public comment might generate more participation than normal, those things could cause a meeting to run way longer than we anticipate. And if we're not prepared for it, then we gotta shut it down early so that we can go into regular meeting. I'm not okay with that.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying, I just don't know that I agree. I know I felt rushed in a lot of the meetings before we made that change. I mean, sometimes we got done early, but sometimes we felt rushed, so.
So I think
But I
this is
understand
something
what
that
you're
we'll bring
saying.
it back up, because I know that it was, also their request, Jaylen also, so.
We'll have to get the opinions of the other two,
Absolutely.
the next study session.
So we can put that as the next study session. Moving to the city council goal study. Again, it's just the 3 of us here. We can talk about some of them, but I think that it's better if we have at least 4 people,
If not 5.
if not the whole council here to discuss it. It might be, where you might wanna start considering, we might have to have a different meeting, just to do.
Yeah, we could hold a separate meeting, we could, people could provide feedback via email as a starting point, maybe.
Or maybe this might be an opportunity to do it for us and then do a combination with the planning commission or other ones, but this is the second time that we've tried to talk about it and not be able to talk about it because we don't have a full.
Not enough people here to
Yeah.
talk.
Again, we did it via email initially, and we all gave our suggestions, how we got the initial
Yep.
document.
Well, we did discuss it during the last study
Right.
session, and Mike did a really nice job of integrating those, changes and comments into the draft that's in the agenda packet tonight. So at least we're making some progress on it, but I agree that in order to get to a ratified set of goals, we need at least the council and probably also the planning commission to be involved in ratifying.
Great. Anything else on that? Because we do have something that's gonna be added.
Yeah, so we wanted to talk about, we talked a little bit earlier about the, we've had our, council rules and procedures in effect for how long now?
You would have to know last March, yeah.
Yeah, so about a year now, and based on emails and comments that we've received, we wanted to talk a little bit more about, maybe modifying the videoing rules. And so, what I talked about with Scott, was setting aside, a separate area, so not to infringe on people's First Amendment rights to copy or to video the meetings, but, that doesn't restrict us from putting rules around it. So people are feeling intimidated, people are feeling like they don't wanna come to meetings because they don't wanna be put on video. So one of the things that we talked about was possibly having removing one of the chairs in the back of the room, in both this room and the other room, and having a separate video area where cameras would be set up, and just left for the meeting to record, and that way people don't have to worry about, being videoed so that so that they show up on social media at another time, so.
People in the audience you're talking about.
People in the audience, yeah. I mean, we have to be videoed, I'm not happy, but we have the right to video us.
Yeah, my position on this is that, obviously, everybody who's actively participating in council meetings should be, it's people's right to report us, it's fine. Anybody who's getting up and making a public comment, in any of these meetings should be able to be recorded. So if we're gonna implement a rule like that in a study session, if we don't have cameras, then we need to provide a space where people's cameras can be positioned so that they can actually see the people making public comments.
Well, we talked about putting a
We're gonna
podium
bring
in
the
here.
podium back and put a podium in here. So, we're thinking in the back corner for videoing. In the corner, in the, council chambers is gonna be closer to the door that goes into the police department, doing it over there. Only, what has been said to us is the fact that having the cameras in the people's faces are not. So that is what, you know.
I follow.
Yeah, so the cameras would have to be on tripods, similar to what you see right there. In the corner, we talked about possibly taping off an area on the floor.
What would we have to do to, put that into motion?
We have to update the council rules and procedures, right?
Or require an amendment to your, for the resolution that adopts council rules and procedure. As you stated, you currently do have, some restrictions that prohibit the disruption of the meeting through the use of, videotaping the meeting. But this would just be an additional requirement that these cameras are not to be, handled during the meeting, and that the designated area for filming, which is a reasonable restriction on preventing disruptions during the meeting.
So that's something you could write for, give us a draft for the
Yeah.
next council meeting?
Everybody in that room, whether they put their phone on a tripod or not, is gonna have a phone in their pocket that they could pull out of their pocket during a meeting and manipulate. And maybe they're videoing and maybe they're not. Are we going to have a rule in place that restricts people from using their phones at all during the meeting?
I wouldn't say
think
that.
so.
It's just the fact of, the great example is currently is where people behind cannot see. And so not to disrupt.
We can't hear you.
Not to disrupt everyone's, ability to be able to hear the meeting or see the meeting, to have it. So not everybody is.
So basically just no handheld videoing, videoing has to be done from a certain.
So if I'm an audience member and I have my phone in my pocket and something comes up that I wanna video for some reason, and I haven't already put my phone on a tripod, then either I can't do it, or I gotta go stand back in the room, or, I'm just bringing up I don't have a position on whether we should or should not do one thing or the other, I'm just bringing up what I anticipate would be concerns that people might have about
I
it.
guess that'd be a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know how you would handle that in the midst of a meeting. I don't see how you could ever potentially regulate for that, because again, you can't tell someone that they can't videotape a public meeting, but you could have restrictions in place to, again, minimize disruptions during the meeting. So it has come up that there have been disruptions or caused disruptions during a meeting, so these are just additional standards that you can implement to hopefully minimize those. Obviously, if someone is doing what you're describing and it does cause or creates a disturbance during the meeting, the mayor or chair of the planning commission or chair of whatever board that may be conducting the meeting has the ability to stop that meeting, to regain order, to minimize the disruption. And if necessary, they can stop the meeting either temporarily or adjourn it to a different date if the disruption continues. So again, hopefully it never comes to that, but at least you're providing yourself with more options to kind of control that.
Do we know of other communities that have done anything similar for similar reasons?
I don't have any, right now I don't have any specific examples for other communities, but I do know that it is something that is permissible, so I could get you some examples.
I'd be curious about it. I know that like other Southfield, for example, it's a much larger chamber, right? So it's less likely that somebody videoing from their seat will disrupt other people's participation. But maybe for smaller communities, not as small as ours, but smaller than Southfield, if you can find
Yeah,
out
I'll
if
see
there are
what
any
I can find.
examples about that, that would be helpful. At least it'll maybe give us some insight into whether we're successful or not, whatever they implemented to try and deal with that situation. And maybe you find out nobody else is dealing with it. Or they're experiencing it and not doing anything about it, like those are also possibilities.
Yeah, but I mean, the overarching issue is that the people should not be intimidated or not wanna come to meetings because of, having a video camera shoved in their face when all they're doing is watching the meeting.
Yeah, we need to create a more welcoming environment
Exactly.
in all of the council meetings. Videoing is part of it, but it's not the only thing. So, okay.
And anything else?
No, I just got some follow-up for you guys. So I found the old notes Southern Active gave us 65,000.
65.
Not
Why did I get it? Why did I get 180?
No, but it's about 65,000. Jason, just to do the work site prep, if we did not do asphalt or anything, it'd probably be $3,000 to $4,000 based on the estimate. When I said asphalt adds another $3 to $4 grand. So just depends.
Somewhere between
Somewhere
3 and 8
essentially
grand.
3 and 8. Yeah, but I think if we just gravel it at first, we're around that 3,000. And our crews have the ability to do it.
Right, they did it to themselves. And then undoing it depends on what we decide to undo it with. If it's
Correct, yeah,
temporary.
if it's just gravel, then it's easy enough where you go with backhoe, scrape it out, and
And build something.
put a fence back and reburn it. Yeah.
Yeah, if you want me to, you want me to bring it up? Yeah, so it, what the mayor's asking is what the current, rules, how they dictate disruptions during the meeting. And just like I explained previously, the mayor had, or whoever's presiding over the meeting has that ability to stop the meeting, and until such time that the individual that's causing a disruption, ceases that behavior. Mayor at that point, would be advised to provide direction as to what the appropriate decorum is, what the expectation is. If that individual continues or persists in that behavior that's causing a disruption, like I said, the mayor can temporarily shut the meeting down, take a brief recess. Council could return. If the conduct persists at that point, it would be advisable that that individual be asked to leave. An officer from the police department could escort them out. Or council could, if they chose, they could take a motion to suspend the meeting and resume it at a different date and time. Obviously, there'd be consequences for that. There's time-sensitive agenda items, but ultimately, it is, the city does have an ordinance that prohibits disruption of a public meeting. It is a misdemeanor offense. Not saying that I would advise that anyone that disrupts a meeting walk out of the meeting with a citation, but it is a possibility, because that is an ordinance that is, the city currently has on its books.
Any questions, concerns about that?
What's considered a disruption in these meetings? I mean, I know there are examples here in the addressing the city council section of our agendas, but I wanna make sure that we're on record and clear about what's considered a disruption.
It could be anything from, obviously extreme, if someone's, throwing chairs around or screaming or shouting, to, someone talking at an inappropriate time. Or, I know someone tonight made a comment about not being able to hear. That obviously I don't think rises to that level, but if people are interjecting comments or statements at a time where it's not appropriate for the public to make a comment, that's not following with the rules of the agenda and the rules of the meeting. So that behavior, that conduct would be something what could be considered out of order. Again, I think to rise to the level of criminal responsibility, that would obviously have to be more than just someone making one comment. But if it truly did disrupt a meeting, create some sort of a scuffle or something during the meeting, that obviously would clearly be a situation that would warrant police involvement. But just kind of respect for the process, respect for the council members, their time that you guys volunteer, and that so that you can have an efficient, well-run meeting without interruption.
Yeah, at the end of the day, all the behavior that's happening in the meeting should be in the service of moving the meeting forward productively, efficiently, and respectfully. So, I just want to read it, because it's here, on the addressing the city council part of our agenda, some examples, right? No speaker may make personal or impertinent attacks upon any officer, employee, or city council member, or other elected official that is unrelated to the manner in which the officer, employee, or city council member, or other elected official performs his or her duties. No person shall use abusive or threatening language toward any individual when addressing the city council. And then it goes on to say that if somebody violates the section of the addressing the city council instructions, the mayor, should be directed by the mayor to be orderly and silent. and if there is deemed to be by the mayor to have been committed a breach of the peace by disrupting and impeding the orderly conduct of a public meeting of the city council, the person may be ordered by the mayor to leave the meeting. And if they refuse, they may direct law enforcement officer who is present to escort the violator from the meeting. So it's just being respectful and making sure that the actions and words that people use in meetings are consistent with moving the agenda of the meeting forward, so that the meeting can be productive. And I think we all keep that in mind, both on the council and the planning commission and in the audience, then we can have efficient, productive, respectful meetings.
Thank you.
Agreed?
Any, other comments regarding that? Okay, so, we are going into the public comments. The public is able to speak for 3 minutes. We have it. And, once everyone has had the ability to speak, if there's a need to come back and speak again, I think during the study session we'll allow it, because I know that this one, I'm assuming that most of you already are probably about the San Jose, situation. If not, I could be wrong. But also when speaking to the council, you can speak, and then the council says their part during the mayor and council comments. Again, in the study session, it's a little bit more lax, at least I try to make it more lax, but it's not a dialogue between the residents and the city council at this point. So, anyone would like to speak, we don't have a podium in here, however, you can stand up at your seat and, speak, state your name, and have 3 minutes.
Hi, my name is Autumn Susannis. Hi, everybody. I'm going to just register how happy I am to see people here. I think some people are here for San Jose. I think some people missed Councilman Hammond's comments that he didn't feel that there was any representation for people in San Jose. So I'm glad to see you here. I'm also wanting to register my displeasure or disappointment that these meetings are not recorded. No one would need to bring a recording device. If you guys did your due diligence and lived up to your Open Meetings Act requirement and made these public meetings available to people who cannot make these meetings, and you know you're being remiss in your responsibilities to our residents and not letting them hear this discussion going on. And so the baloney I'm hearing about cameras and faces is hilarious, considering you can review the footage. There was no cameras in anyone's face. Public meetings, there is no expectation of privacy. And if you guys want to impinge on my free speech, I will have my lawyer contact you. This is free speech. It's a public meeting. There's no expectation of privacy, and that's some baloney. So I know you guys don't like, having any kind of reaction. You want us all to sit on our hands and hold our breath while you talk. But Mayor Garrett, we can't hear you. You have your mouth covered. We can't hear you. You're not microphone. This is the wrong room to have the meeting. It's not recorded. It's despicable. It's a disgrace.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to be heard?
I would. Hi, I'm Pamela Wordlow. I live on San Jose Court. I'm not in favor of the temporary access. I don't know if I missed when you guys mentioned when it was gonna start, the purpose of it, how long it's gonna be for, or what you feel the pros and cons are for the temporary access. Because I live in that neighborhood, I walk in that neighborhood, I ride my bike in that neighborhood. I know how dangerous a lot of traffic is going to be coming directly through there. It's already bad enough with people cutting through Glenwood and the other cut-throughs to get from one side of the freeway to the other side.
Right.
So I think making it cut through our little circle is really gonna be a big problem. We've installed all these bike lanes because you wanna make it friendly for us to ride our bikes, and then you're gonna put traffic coming from everywhere through the same neighborhood that you claim is supposed to be safe for me to ride my bike. You can't have it both ways. We have a lot of little kids over there. We have blind, vision impaired people over there, hearing impaired people over there that I see walking, particularly in our cul-de-sac, because it is closed off, because it's safe for them to walk around there without a lot of traffic.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just dangerous. It's not fair. I don't understand the opening of it for, I think it's supposed to be for emergency vehicles only. There's other access to the neighborhood for emergency, for everybody. People find it all the time. When 12 miles goes off, there's people driving through the neighborhood. The school's over there, there's parents over there every morning. People find the other ways to get in. So I cannot believe that you're saying that the public responders and first responders cannot find another way to get into that neighborhood other than that little corner. It doesn't even make any sense to me. It's not even wide enough for two cars to go down at the same time. It's a little strip. And I moved over here right before it was closed. I remember when that subdivision was being built and it was open, and I remember driving through there myself, probably
Right.
disrupting the builders as they were working. You have the condo that's over there, the daycare that's over there, another school that's over here. I can see some parents wanting to pull up over there to drop their kids off and start cutting back through people's driveways, which used to happen, to get to the school over there. It's just so many factors I urge you guys to consider before you think about opening it up.
Thank you. So, for you, if we weren't here yet, I'm gonna allow our first responders to be the ones that's going to answer your questions. Go ahead.
Can I just have her name? Did you-
Mine?
Yeah.
Pamela Wordlow, Werdlow.
Hey,
Just so you can, actually both of you all, if you can, address some of that, because I wasn't really sure if everyone was here. Were you here
No.
when, okay, so if you can just go over again exactly.
Sure, yeah, so our biggest concern is obviously response times and getting to help you guys when we need to help you. We took a snapshot of a 2-year period of calls to that specific, from Saratoga, Santa Barbara to that southwest corner. We've seen traffic challenges with the other portion of 696 being closed the last 2 years. We had to deal with it in Southfield and response challenges and whatnot. And I can tell, like I mentioned to council here, just in my drive from fire headquarters to here tonight, which normally takes about 12 minutes, took about 25, 26 minutes just because we're already seeing increased traffic. Our biggest concern is as people start to deal with the 696 closure, they're gonna find alternate routes, which are typically mile roads or north-south streets, which is going to congest them a lot more. Currently, over the 2-year period, we did look, there was 135 calls for the fire department in that little quarter square mile. And of those, 108 of them were dispatched to Station 3, which is the station that's closest to you folks, at 12 Mile and Evergreen. The average response time from Station 3 during that 2-year period was 8 minutes and 56 seconds. If we were to access that little quarter square from Evergreen, it would cut it down, we can project to about 3 minutes. Because we don't have to go farther east, come in, and then cut back to the west, and then come down to wherever the emergency is in that little quarter square. We look at it, and I mentioned to them in the fire service, is the phrase predictable is preventable. Our biggest concern is providing adequate service to you. That's our only concern, is to make sure we can get there when time matters to you or any of your neighbors who are experiencing an emergency. We had a few weeks ago a meeting with MDOT, then they finally explained to first responders what the closures were gonna look like, the fact that some of the crossovers over 696 were gonna be closed, which would make it challenging for our units to cross over and then come in from the south end, which would then, stations that are even further south would have to pass it, go to 12 Mile and come down south. That perpetuated a meeting that we had from Southfield Emergency Response to Lathrop Village Police and some of the other folks there last week, to bring up the issue and potential solutions. So at the end of the day, we're just concerned with being able to get you guys when we need to get you guys.
From a law enforcement perspective, obviously, I think it's more about medical emergencies. You're talking about somebody whose heart stops, we have less than 6 minutes before there's brain injuries and things like that. So absolutely speaking from a medical standpoint, it's what's more important, especially from us. But we did learn a lot from them, and closing down those overpasses are what's really gonna slow us down getting over the neighborhood. Maybe not especially your law enforcement agency, but the fire department and medics is what's really gonna slow down.
You mentioned that it's temporary, that we're considering it temporary use, and the fact that it will be a, TCO, which is a traffic controller.
Right, there would be a traffic control order in place enacted by the city council, would make we'd put authorized personnel only or emergency vehicles only signs there, which would make it actually a ticketable offense for anybody to come through there by your law enforcement agency, would be able to ticket them.
Okay. Now, I drive out in that subdivision all the time, no disrespecting that. but I see people blow by that stop sign that is a tickable offense on 696 and Rainbow Circle daily.
Amen.
Daily.
Red
It's
River.
ridiculous. Red River, yeah.
Red River.
So that's a ticketable offense. People are not thinking about that one. They're definitely not gonna think about that little thing when they wanna get to where they're gonna wanna get to. I would think maybe if you're gonna do it, if there's some way to make it so the only people that have access to it are medical, police, I don't know if there's some kind of gate, some type of card system, some type of siren activated or something like that, might be a feasible option. But if you think that somebody is gonna pay attention to that, when I was in college, we drove through those things all the time. All the time.
So what you're saying about the gate, the gate costs how much?
Yeah, so we've looked at the siren activate gate in the past, and it costs roughly $65,000 for us to do something like that.
And that's just for the gate, that's not the installation.
That's everything, so that'd be for the gate, power, and site prep.
But you have to bid it out,
Yeah.
and we have to get
it'd
the
be a big
materials,
process,
like, it's not something that can happen quickly.
yeah. Correct.
So at this time, it's a thought, right? It's something that we have another meeting we have to go through before it is something that we'll do. And that's why I'm glad that you all came out, I figure, hence the reason why I did come, because I was not feeling well, why I came to make sure that we had this discussion. And that's why both people, why they're here, to answer your questions. You had a question also?
Yes, over the 2-year period that my name is Linda Daniels, I live on San Jose, right where you're proposing or considering the opening. Over the 2-year period that you looked at, how much activity did you register?
So it was just in that little quarter square mile was roughly 135 911 calls to us to
During
respond
the
during the
2-year
2-year
period?
period.
And so you said the average response time during the 2-year period
From
was
station number 3, which is the closest
on
station,
12 miles.
made 108 responses to that quarter square, and it was 8 minutes and 56 seconds.
And Captain, if you could expound, if Station 3 is tied up, which, I mean, it's a busy station, where would the next station be coming
So
from?
the next station, depending on where, for their activity, could either be coming out of Station 5, which is 10 in Los, or it would be coming out of Station 1, which is 9 in Southfield. I can tell you that Station 1 made 9 responses in that corner of the city. Let's see here, 9 responses. Their response time, because of coming from a different direction, was a little less. It was just under 7 minutes. Station, let's see here, Station 5, if I look at the numbers from Station 5 going to that, was just about the same as Station 3, 2 minutes, 27 seconds, because we'd be coming from the south, and we would have to then go past it, cross over the bridges on 696, and come back to come north. And that was our concern with the construction, is they're gonna close a bunch of those crossovers, is what we'd call them, so we won't be able to access it from 11 Mile. We'd have to go down to Southfield Road to go back westbound, and then we're projecting that westbound's service drive there will be congested as well because of the construction traffic.
And, this part, to try to remember, what is the goal of, what's the time, the goal?
So we would like, somebody on scene within 4 to 6 minutes at the most, is
And
what
you're
our
currently
goal
at
is.
8?
What's that? Yeah, we're above 8 minutes right now. We did project with Google Mapping, when we looked at Google Maps, just the drive time, if we were to be able to enter San Jose, would be 3 minutes from the front apron of Station 3 to where the berm is right now. So we would be in that neighborhood within 3 minutes of drive time, per Google Mapping the last time we checked that. And going to the same address via Google Mapping, it did confirm a 7-minute drive time.
So I'm sorry, you don't have the information written. You said that over 2 years was about 180?
135 total calls to that
135
corner.
over 2 years?
Yes, ma'am.
So that's 365 days times 2, roughly 700 days. 180 over 700 days. So about every 3 days you had on?
It goes in spurts. I mean, there's, we might go a couple weeks without any calls, and we
Right.
might go a week with 2 or 3
Right.
calls, so.
I'm just trying to get a
Sure.
feel for the
Frequency?
Right.
Totally get it.
And what would be the cost roughly to the city, to make the change that the fire department is?
The cost of just opening it?
I'm sorry?
The cost of just opening it?
Yeah, so just a temporary opening, so removing the berm, removing the fence, and throwing some gravel down, we're looking about $3 to $4 grand. If we remove all that and then add asphalt to make it a smooth driving area for them, it'd probably be pushing about $8,000. So that's what we're looking at, about $3,000 to $8,000 just for opening it.
I have a question too. So say that we open it, but we leave, barrels there, and someone has to get out of the truck to move the barrels. Is that, I'm just wondering time-wise, is that going to ruin the time? Seeing as you're cutting back the time by opening it, if you put barrels there and he had to move it when an emergency vehicle came through, you know what I'm saying? I know that sounds,
So the question I would have would there be an expectation for us to put the barrel back after we drove through? Because that would take up consistent time, and then if you're looking at multiple units coming in, that creates a bottleneck where they stop, move the barrel, pull forward, put the barrel back, next unit comes in.
I'm thinking that, you have to have to some type of, you have to have a concern of people getting, emergency services in a certain amount of time. But I also fully understand of having my street, which is, it's been private all these years, to be all of a sudden open. So it's coming to a happy medium, so I'm thinking, and this might be, nuts, but as we all know, when you come, right, because you get a run report, and you know that we have to send a police car back over there to put the barrel back in place. Not put it on the responsibility of the fight, you know what I'm saying?
I can't imagine that it would be like, fire truck comes, move the barrels, fire truck goes through, put the barrels back, and then another support vehicle comes and you have, it wouldn't be like that, right? It would be move the barrels, leave them alone while the emergency is happening. Once the emergency is cleared, then LVPD.
Because I'll be perfectly honest with you, like right now, we're talking about us getting there, but with that being open, we would also use that as an avenue to, if we had to transport you to the hospital, to be able to get out onto a main road, go southbound on Evergreen to get on M10 to go down to Providence. We had to get you, that would, decrease our time of getting out of the neighborhood, transporting in an ambulance as well. So it'd be a two-way route for us. We're not just getting into there. Obviously, those are the numbers we have the metrics on, response times, but also being able to leave the scene rapidly if we're transporting somebody having a medical emergency.
So you said though, the response time currently is almost 9 minutes?
Yep, 8 minutes and 56 seconds.
And if you can, and that's because you have to go to Southfield Road or to
Correct.
the Service Drive and come around. So if you remove this berm and you can use San Jose, it cuts down to 3 minutes.
3 minutes to get into that corridor.
To get to the
Yes.
corridor,
Yep.
it might be another
Yep.
minute or two to get into the subdivision. So even if there are barrels there that somebody has to move once in order to get all the vehicles in and then leave displaced while the emergency is happening, you're still cutting down the response time by at least 3 minutes.
Sure.
It's just, so the mayor's bringing up is like, is there a compromise that, 99% of the time when it's not being used for emergency purposes, San Jose at least has some sort of obstruction that will limit the cut-through traffic better than just signs.
Sure, your other option would be, and they did it over, I'd have to look at what the street is. Edwards is one of them. There is one on, where Bradford Academy is on Garner Street in Southfield, where they've made it a one-way. You can get out of the neighborhood, but you can't get in. Now, obviously, in an emergency, we would get in.
Yeah.
So you could also signage it as
Going out.
exiting the neighborhood only, make
And
it
one
narrow
lane.
enough so it's one, it's wide enough for a fire apparatus, but it's not so wide where people think, oh, it's a two-way street. Edwards, I believe, is that way too, up off the Southfield Road, where you make it one way and then have signage both do not enter, emergency vehicles only, but yet cars can exit the neighborhood, but you won't get the cut-through traffic coming in off Evergreen Road, except for when we have an emergency, we can cut through. That's
So-
another.
That's a great idea. Also, we could try an approach that's like, what Jason just described. And if we get a lot of reports of cut-through traffic against the one-way signals, or then maybe we put a movable barrier like a barrel or something to try and respond to that.
I think both. I mean,
You
personally.
can start with both, or we can try it one way, see what the impact is, and then react to the impact.
I will also tell you that if, we have seen it in construction zones, where we have literally seen cars stop and move barrels and things and stuff. It happened when they had the ramp from Lasser to northbound M10 closed for a while. We were getting
For
calls
sure
on
it'll happen,
cars.
Yeah.
but it probably will happen less often than people driving through without a barrier.
I was just trying to think of some options, because to me, it's sounding like this is a, this emergency situation that's gonna
so.
And I will tell you, creeping the crowd, we do have several facilities in Southfield that we respond to that have the siren activated gates, and they work wonderfully. We pull up, we put a certain pitch on our siren, gate goes up, we pull through, and there's a time delay. After so many seconds, it goes back down. So, but I get that that's a much more expensive cost to you as well.
And it takes time, it's gonna
Absolutely.
be at least a year.
Correct.
Yes,
Just off the wall thought, rather than asphalt or gravel that anybody can use, would there be some way to, not quite booby trap, but put something like a speed bump that the fire apparatus could use without it, could pass over without a whole lot of hassle? But your everyday person in a car would be going, I don't wanna do this. I don't know what's out there.
Sure.
That's another thought.
I mean, I know we've had, Southfield's tried a few times with speed bumps in neighborhoods for, neighborhoods where they've had cars cutting through speeding a lot. It just causes us to slow down and go over it in a more controlled fashion. They've also on Winchester, I believe that's the street, they've done construction, now this was the length of the street, they installed a roundabout in the middle of the neighborhood, but they've choked it down in several spots to where it's wide enough to park cars, and then the curbs bump out to make it more narrow, so you have to take your time going through there, it's not as wide open of a street. But again, all that type of stuff comes at an added cost.
Just to be clear, when you were talking about the one-way, or when we were talking about the one-way, are we saying that it would be open for residents to leave?
If you put a sign up like that, yeah.
So, which would increase traffic in that area as well, just by having that open. So.
Robert Armstrong, San Jose, probably the first house in that little subdivision in 99. My question is, for any cost to be done, is that gonna be presented to us, the taxpayers, or taken on by the city of Lake Village?
that's a great question. I think that, the low cost, this is just me guessing, low cost, we're taking it on.
Yeah, we would pay out of it for street funds,
High cost,
still street funds.
oh, okay, well then your answer is, they don't think so.
You don't think so? I can't hear you.
We, just the removal, which, city administrator said would be $3,000 to $8,000, just to open that berm, would just come out of the city's existing street funds. So there's no additional taxation or anything like that would have to occur to pay for that. We don't know where we would get the money if we were gonna do a $65,000, $70,000 siren activated gate project.
I mean, I guess the one thing, just thinking out loud, the one thing to consider is that this is gonna cost us $3,000 to $8,000 versus $65,000. If we do end up doing a Public Act 33 or a Headley and/or, there would be some extra money to
But it's
put
gonna
something ahead of the
happen.
budget. But this has to happen
happening.
now.
Yeah, this
Right.
is happening. Did you have a question?
Lori Barris, I don't know how many people here have actually had a fire in their home, but I have. I really don't wanna be filmed.
Okay.
Can we turn that around while I'm giving public
Sure.
comment? Thank you.
Sure.
I have had a fire in my home. We've been in our home here for 25 years now, and about 18 years ago, we had a kitchen fire. And I know the difference between 5 minutes and 8 minutes, or an extra 3 minutes or an extra 5 minutes, because my kitchen went up really fast. So I don't live on San Jose, I live in Golden Gate, and I have a throughway street where people race through there and run through my stop signs all the time too. We sit at that front window and curse at them all the time. So I can imagine the extra inconvenience, and we know friends who live on Lathrop too, and all the through streets, and they get so upset. I get that. But I've also lived through a fire, and I'd hate for anybody to lose their life or lose their home because of an extra 5 minutes. So I thank you for reviewing ways to keep us safer in all the ways you're talking about.
Thank you. Yes.
Hi, Tim Hillman. Rick, I appreciated your comment. It resonated with me because I work on a private drive that would be very easily the cut-through shortcut for many people trying to get through the 16 and Mount intersection. That's where my office is. That private drive is signed accordingly. I know some of you brought up, I think it was you, fireman, yeah, that brought up the signs. But to Rick's point, at the intersection where those signs are, it's not a bump, it's the opposite of a bump, it's like a dip. And obviously this is unscientific research, but I watch people through my window try to take that shortcut and turn around all the time. And of course, there are people that violate the sign and take the ride down the dip anyway. But my very layperson observation at one example of this in another part of Metro Detroit is I'd say 19 out of 20 obey the sign and don't take the risk. There's also signage about like violators will be ticketed and stuff like that. So it's kind of aggressive warnings, but it seems to be effective. That's just my observation.
Anyone else? Yeah.
So what would be your next step here after this conversation?
So if council is inclined to remove the berm, it would require a resolution to do that. And then as Lieutenant Zhang has stated, traffic control order for the installation of the signage, if that's the route you would like to go with respect to enforcing it.
And so that would be the next meeting? It would be the next meeting to make any decision, if that's where it goes, it would be the next meeting to make a decision.
So the next time council will talk about this will be March 17th, so in 2 weeks.
So those of us that live there on that street, we won't have anything to say about it?
It's a public meeting, you can come and make comments.
I'm sorry, in terms of whether we have the traffic on our street or not.
The city council is tasked with weighing the concerns from a public safety perspective with the concerns from a resident's perspective, and we have to jointly make a decision, one way or the other.
And you'll have the opportunity, well, you have the opportunity obviously now, and you'll have the opportunity at that meeting to, sorry, I need to speak up. You'll have the opportunity to address council before we take any action on that measure, as well as contacting any of us in the interim to discuss it.
Well, of course, this is the third time we had to go through this when we've been there since they started, we built that place.
That's right.
We had, and it was in the contract that that cul-de-sac would be closed off after construction was finished.
Yeah.
The second time I've said this at the meeting, but I just want to, just for the record here. Then, and Robert, oh, I think he's gone. But Robert, he moved in first, I moved in after him or so. And our builder, Frank, said, we will close that off when we're done. And once we're done, we had to come back before you and we had to go through a lot of issues to get it to be done the way it was written up. And these people ran through there so fast, it was horrible. Okay, so then we got it closed. All right, so then this summer, were you here? Yeah, I know it wasn't you. I knew it was another guy. It was another guy, and you were there at the meeting, weren't you? There were 2 fire people there.
Yeah, I'm not sure who was.
Okay. Oh, yeah, the fire chief, and I didn't know who the second person was. So anyway, we went through this summer, and we talked about it, and I thought you understood that we were solidly against all of this. And you brought up the life-saving, and one life is good, and all that, yes. And we told you no. All right, so now, here we are again. This is the third time. And I assume that you're not privy to all that stuff that went before.
I knew there was some discussion, I'm not sure
Okay,
what the
okay.
discussion was.
So here we are again, and this is the third time, and that's why I asked, how much input are we gonna have? Because I thought we made it clear, and if, I know I'll ask Robert, and I'll ask the other families around to come and see what we can say to make it clear to you guys that we don't want it. And I don't want it, I all of that. But the point here is that you're talking about my quality of life and what I signed up for when I moved here. See, this is not something new. We said it's gonna be closed off, we will build, we will close it off, and that's what we signed up for. Now, you guys come late, I mean, what you're asking for and you're causing, there's no question about it. But, you know, you can't trample on what we signed up for without us having something to say about it.
But this one is
Like put on the ballot.
from the-
Thank you. That's what I'm getting to.
Things have changed because the construction project is closing down U-turns, Michigan U-turns, and other parts that, other pathways that public safety currently uses to get into your neighborhood in an emergency. So we have to consider the possibility. None of it, having this conversation says we're definitely going to open up this berm.
Yeah, but the point is, what's gonna happen when you do decide, well, here we go, let's do this?
We should have a really good reason to do it if we're going to decide to do that.
Well, you got good reason. I mean, if you can save lives, save a house from burning down. I mean, those are excellent reasons.
That this, at least for me, that this is not an easy.
I'm sorry, I really.
I'm sorry, my chest is killing me to try to scream, so.
I'm good.
So, this is a tough situation, a tough decision to make. And the only reason that personally that I would even consider it is because of the construction that's going on. That's the only reason I would consider it. And the fact is that when we talked about it before, it was either due the, in my brain, this is just me, it was either due the signal, the gate,
activated gate.
or nothing. That was my thought.
Right.
When this came up recently because of this, the turnaround situation, it's a whole different story to me at this point. That's why I feel as though before we come up with an idea to do this, that there needs to be some things in place. Like, and now the barrels sound real simple, but it is simple. That's something that we can do immediately and make sure that people don't come through there. It is where I respect what everyone is saying that lives on San Jose, but I also have to respect for the people that might have an emergency and they would have to come around 12 miles down and around. They're already not making their goals. For them to go all the way around, that's gonna be 1,000 times worse. There was a fire on my street and the house went up extremely fast. It's total. It's still there total. There was a house on California that almost got totaled.
Yes, I've heard it.
So those are the things that I'm keeping in my mind. I had a medical emergency and how fast it came to my house. Those are the things that I'm personally thinking about. But I don't want to disrupt the way that you are living now. But it's like this for at least for me. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And I'm hearing what believe me, I hear what you're saying. I respect what you're saying. I live on somewhat of a dead-end street, but I also live on Santa Barbara where I see the high speeds that's going down there. When we were doing the streets, I saw people get out their car and move cones. I've gotten in arguments with people about on our newly paved streets, moving cones. It is really, it's honestly, for me, it's not a situation that I can go into lightly, but I also gotta think about if it was my family that lived over there and they had there's a fire or a heart attack, and that's happened in my household, that you have to go somewhere all the way around, and you said it's 6 minutes to.
So, if I can say, of course, but here, we were talking about at least having something there so that you could have emergency access, but not have people, because like as you know, and as this lady here mentioned, stop signs and cones and barrels, when they're in a hurry and it's lunchtime or it's evening time, if they can do it, they will do it. But, so all I'm asking, what I understand here is, if you decide how much of at least have understanding of what we could do in terms of a barrier. What would we do? You know, cones and barrels is not going to do it. It's not going to do it. So let's have at least, even if when you guys go forward with this, if you decide to have it removed, at least have some kind of solution, okay, for unwanted traffic. Have a solution.
Let me ask you, if the city went forward with a solution where it was removed but replaced temporarily by barrels, and there was an opportunity to see if they were effective or not, then you could have some measurable thing that you could measure against to see if we've created the huge problem that you anticipate or not. Is that something that people that live in that neighborhood would be acceptable to, as a test, to see if it would be effective?
Well, here again, let's look at this. We don't have the money right now. You say you may have the money for the $6,000 to $8,000, right? Now, what are we gonna do? We need to find out, if you find out that it's not available, it's not gonna work, and they're coming through there. What will we do then? Will we have the money to put the berm back?
There is money in the street fund to do like a $3,000 to $8,000 project twice,
Not a 65,000.
but not a $65,000 project to install a siren activated gate. So yeah, you're right, we would have to come up with, if we're gonna have this test, then we need to have plans in place of how we respond to that test. That's absolutely true.
Think it through, that's all I'm asking.
What's your name?
Oh, I'm so sorry. William Daniels.
Thank you, sir.
Anyone else? Yes, sir.
Hi, Scott Warner. I don't want to be filmed, thank you.
Okay.
I just wanted, when I walked in, I just wanted to be sure I heard correctly. We were talking about this as a temporary solution while all of this construction is going on, and then we could mitigate correcting the solution if we're opening that up afterwards. And I also wanted to add a statistic here. My house also caught fire, and you're talking about 2 out of 10 people in this room. So think about that when we're talking about adding time to any kind of emergency service. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Okay, so I don't know what went into this in terms of the discussion of the traffic and all of how everything needs to be diverted. Does Lathrop Village meet with MDOT, and did you all discuss how that's gonna slow down all the public service?
So basically, MDOT hosted a meeting at their headquarters in Detroit, and it was just an overview to us of this is what what they call an MOT, or maintenance of traffic plan, is. We have input as far as where we can access the construction site in the event of an emergency, things like that. They did ask us for input on timing of traffic lights on surface streets, but as far as what they're gonna do, when they're gonna do it, that's all set by MDOT. We have very little input on that.
Now, I know that, because I've been listening, following this story on the news a lot, that MDOT did this project down because they have the funds need to be used. Are there funds in there for MDOT to add to this emergency gate?
That would be an MDOT question, I would have no idea.
But is this anything that the council thought about asking them? Okay, you're gonna shut down our neighborhood or open it up to allow people to cut through it. What kind of funding is available to help our neighborhood? Because in Oak Park, I know everybody who's been listening to this, the Church Street Bridge is being torn down, the whole park is being, torn up. You know that neighborhood did not let that go without what we're gonna do for this park, blah, 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 blah.
right.
They already have great plans for how it's gonna be afterwards. So they have to have gotten some funding for that. Why can't we get some funding for the emergency gate?
Good point.
Can you look into seeing if MDOT, is MDOT doing the park and helping Oak Park, or does Oak Park already have that
I
money?
saw them news.
MDOT's not gonna pay for our residential siren activated gate. They may pay for a temporary solution.
There may be funds for it though, that's what I'm saying, because
That's
this
right.
money
But
this
it's
project is
worth
being
checking.
done because they have to use this money. That's why they said they're doing this project now. So how do we know whether they're using all the money or what the excess is until we ask? You don't know until you ask.
So we can have that, hopefully, not hopefully, can we please have that by the next meeting? I mean, just the
Yeah,
information.
it's MDOT.
I just want
Yeah,
to.
it's MDOT, so we'll do it
I mean,
again,
but
the information,
it's, oh, that's not Oakland County. that-
If you're gonna call them anyway, ask if a representative can come to the next meeting. They'll probably say no, but if we don't ask, the answer is definitely no.
So that's what we can do. we can control our controllables. So, yes, ma'am. Yes.
Just one last comment on communication. It was helpful to have the notice put on our door on Saturday that this meeting would be held tonight. However, apologize for being late, but we had already set an appointment in Lansing.
Oh my
That
gosh.
could not be changed.
Wow.
So I tried to Google as we were driving home from Lansing to see if there's a Facebook or a phone call so we could hear your presentation before we got here, and we would not need to ask you to repeat it. But it would be helpful to have more than, less than one business day, because we had already set the appointment in Lansing with a state department, and we needed to have what we were doing done before the end of the week, and this was the day to do it.
Wow.
So it would be helpful to have more notice, at least a business day of this meeting or a type of meeting, so that we can adjust our lives to be here on time.
Yeah, unfortunately, we didn't know about it until Thursday, and so we asked Mike to actually specifically go out and put
Right. We
notices on
appreciate
people's
that.
doors.
But I didn't
That would
see it
be
until Saturday,
best thing that we
so
could
I
do,
don't know when it was there.
given the amount of time we had, so.
Yeah, unfortunately, this one was a short turnaround. That's why we're letting you
Yes.
know next time council will talk about this will be March 17th.
Right, we know now.
Similar to last time when we talked about the sign activate gate, plan is to send you guys letters,
Right.
just as reminders, but yeah,
Right.
unfortunately, this one was just short turnaround.
Right, I understand.
My name is George Taylor, and I live in San Jose Court also. And I talked to Mike just the other day, and he's very nice I know he's a code enforcer, we welcome him in. But the thing is, we just have the traffic come through there. Once that open, you would not believe it. It's like Red River and 11 Mile Road. That's a stop sign there. Stop sign on both sides. People go through, and y'all see the police there. They don't care nothing about that. They just go through there. It's not gonna be no different where my home is at, where the Daniels' home's at, where the Whitlow's home's at. Our homes, we've been down this road before, and we've seen this before. It is literally a nightmare.
It is.
It's just a nightmare where sales signs just need to be popped up right away, because this is crazy. It's the reason why that street is closed, so that a person can really stock up from Evergreen and in front of our house and get right out and do all the dirty work they really want to do. With that street there open. And we got kids that live there. I got grandkids that come play down that street. I got to shelter them back in, and then you can't play today because it's getting a little crazy. 12 miles backed up, 11 miles backed up. Evergreen's backed up. Any of these things, Southfield's backed up, create a big issue for us. And the traffic just flows. So one person see the other person go, the other, you just come.
Floodgates are open.
It's just unbelievable what we had to deal with 25 years ago there to have that close, so we would not have the issue that we're having today, but we are having it. Like the Daniel said, it's, they have a child that's blind that have to walk down that street, and they're entitled to walk that street right there without being hit by a car. You got electric cars out here, makes no sound whatsoever. And they're very fast. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? Is there anyone else that would like to be heard? And I appreciate you again, you all coming out. We will do our due diligence to see if there's something that MDOT can do. I know it probably, go ahead.
Can I just ask one other question? I noticed that when the sign was put at my door, it was just put around the cul-de-sac, but not around the whole neighborhood. That was to me was strange.
Well,
But then everybody didn't get a notice when we're saying it. Only a couple of people got notices. The people here living around San Jose got notices.
San Jose Boulevard and San Jose.
That's it. You got a notice. I'm just wondering. There's a whole neighborhood there. There's a big. See, to me, notices and stuff should have been sent out by mails or
Well, mail's too slow, right? You just
We
heard
had
it's too
one,
slow.
we had 1 day.
Yeah, we just.
We had 1 day.
Found out about it Thursday.
Well, think about those flyers you guys put up for those concerts that are coming up. I see those things all over the place. Those concerts are
Months in advance.
They go all over at the last minute though. I'm saying at the last minute because just like you said, you don't live in that area. It affects you. It affects everybody that's gonna be in that neighborhood. So I think
for the
everybody in the neighborhood
concert,
needs to know.
There's actually a person that's driving around to put those
I mean,
up.
I get it. That was just an
And so, but
example.
this
I
one-
just know they're everywhere when they
Absolutely.
go up.
If we had more time, then it would absolutely, gone to more people. But I'm gonna give Mike the kudos on this one, that he got people out there as fast as possible, as soon as we found out about it. And again, this is not something I'm gonna say on behalf of the rest of the council, this is not something that any of us are taking lightly. We're also residents here. And again, I personally live on the busiest street to me next to Lathrop, so I understand what your concern is, because my street's a cut through. I know it, what it looks like. So, it's not something lightly, we're gonna take lightly, and we'll look into what MDOT can do. And then I would ask you to come back on March 17th, or if you've got people that can send letters. Now, even though, here's the thing, you can still send letters, but if we can think of solutions, because this to me, and I think this is for you all also, this is a serious matter about emergency in people's lives and life in their homes. And so if you can come up with some other options, some thoughts, that's not gonna cost $65,000 unless, you'll loan it to us, I'm just joking. Yeah, let's talk about it at our next meeting. That sound like a plan? Okay, so,
As long as the barrier doesn't go down before then.
Nothing's happening.
It's not gonna be open up before, okay.
no, nothing can happen until council does an actual resolution in the
TCO,
yeah.
traffic control.
Nothing can happen.
Yeah, just
until
to
that
be
happens.
clear, yeah, we have to have a vote, it's gotta be in a publicly noticed regular meeting, the next meeting is on the 17th, so nothing will happen between now and then. And then even if there is a vote to do this after that meeting, there'll need to be some time to get DPW out there to do the work. I imagine it will be noticed to people in the neighborhood that this is happening, so you'll know one way or the other, even if it gets voted down, you'll know that.
Yes, sir.
Can't everybody get a notice by mail to the whole Victory Village, so that we can fill up these rooms, because only just a few people around the cul-de-sac. I think you'll see a great big difference when everybody comes to these meetings.
You want a
Instead of-
public hearing, maybe?
Yeah, public hearing, whatever it
Public
takes.
hearing.
We need everybody to come
So
to these
public
meetings.
hearings are noticed in newspapers and online. We could mail things out.
We just mail them out.
It's very expensive to mail things to everybody in this city.
Really?
Tens of thousands of dollars if we notice everything that happens every year in the city.
I ain't talking about everything. I'm talking about this road closing.
That's right.
It's one thing we're talking about here.
I think that it's really for the people that are affected on that street, and that's the reason why we send it out that way, because it's for the people that are directly affected, whose lives will be changed, that lived over there. That's, and I still agree with it on that situation, to be truthful. Yes, yes.
I'd like to talk about cameras, and I prefer not to be filmed as well. I'm a photographer, and I recognize everybody's right, their First Amendment rights. I'm an urban
This is
landscape
Bob Barris
photographer.
talking.
Bob Barris, yeah. And it's your right to film in public places.
That's
It's your
right.
right to shoot photographs in public places.
Yep.
And I think it's disingenuous, though, when you turn your camera back on people.
You know
who
you're
are
on
not-
camera right now,
Excuse
right?
me,
The
excuse me,
security
excuse me,
cameras on you?
Excuse me, Autumn. Thank
Sorry,
you. Go ahead.
pardon me.
I didn't interrupt you when you
No,
spoke.
not at all.
Okay.
Go ahead.
And so it's disingenuous when you say I'm exercising my First Amendment rights, when you turn the camera on people, and then later use that video as a weapon against them on social media, in newsletters, and I'm sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm very respectful when I'm out shooting photographs. I don't invade people's spaces, I don't shoot people on the sidewalk eating, you know, their lunch. I'd like to also remind the person who likes to film the meetings that at one meeting they turned their camera on somebody, who turned their camera back on her, and then when the meeting was over, she asked for an escort by the police because she felt she was being harassed.
Yeah.
So, you know,
Rightfully
what goes
so.
around comes around, and that's all.
Thank you.
Everybody has their right.
Thank you. So going to mayor and council comments real quick. Don't forget March 17th, we will do our best to get more, participation from that area. First one up is for autumn. With my notes. Thank you, Jason, appreciate it. We heard you about the displeasure of not, recording the study session. It is something that I think that, you know, we do need to discuss. The one reason why we decided not to record them was because of cost, more than anything else. That's number one. When you.
Can I say one thing real quick?
Sure.
Yeah, and, what you said was inaccurate. It is not an open meeting act requirement to record meetings.
So, and that's what I was gonna say, I just pulled up the Opens Meetings Act, and it's the, OMA from 1976, PA 267, MCL 15.261. What the OMA requires is that we must give the public advance notice of meeting times and locations. We've done that. Public bodies must allow the public to address them at meetings. We've done that. Public bodies must take minutes of meetings and make them available to the public. We've done that. Public bodies must make corrections to minutes at the next meeting after the meeting to which the minutes refer, and we do that. There's nothing else about having it recorded, and that's by the Michigan state law. The next thing is, we're not infringing on your, First Amendment right, you're actually infringing on other people's. Because this is a public meeting, correct, but when you take your camera, when a camera's turned into someone's face, they may not want to be recorded from someone who's a private citizen. So in order for that, and just of how this is going right now, I would suggest, and I will put that forward in our next meeting, that there will be a designated place in the back of the room where our cameras will go, where everyone who wants to bring a camera, you can set it there, but not put it in people's faces. You heard 3 people tonight that said they don't want their faces on your camera, on your camera. When you come into, it's just me, when you come into this building, this is a public building. There's cameras all around, so you would be recorded, but that's the expectation because you're in a public building and it's a public entity, not a private entity. And you weaponize, and I will double down on what Mr. Barrett said, you weaponize these videos and it is starting to upset people more than not. And believe it or not, and I know that I'm supposed to have proof of everything, yet you give none, that there are numerous people that are now starting to reach out, not just to me, but to Bruce, to Jason, and to the city manager about them feeling harassed and feeling that they're being demonized if they don't agree with you. So there's that part.
Or even just.
Or if they
or
flip me
even
off,
just seeing.
and then I make it public.
This is exactly what we're talking
So
about.
If you'd like to leave, you're more than welcome.
More than welcome.
So, excuse me, still for me. And then last one for me is, I haven't worn a mask in 5 years, if you noticed. I haven't had COVID in 5 years. Guess what happened on Thursday? I got diagnosed with COVID. And it came back on Sunday, yesterday, that I was negative. I know that the person that sits, because I care about how people are, I know the person that sits to my left has someone in their household with a compromised immune system. I only wish everybody cared about other people like that. Hence the reason why I have a mask on today. And I haven't been talking for 2 days, and I realize now throat and chest is hurting, and it is a strain. So the reason why you can't hear me is because I am protecting the person to my left's son. Because I know what it is. And so I apologize if you could not hear me, but I think people's well-being is more important than anything else. And I don't know what's going on in your house, and this is the right thing to do. As much as I did not want to wear it, I wore it.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. And I think the rest of them was for I guess I could stop doing it that way, but they get fogged up. I forgot. So the rest of it was for the San Jose opening, and again, this is a difficult situation for me. It's very difficult, but that's all. Go ahead.
Yeah, the only thing I was gonna add, sorry, I'm not before, was just that, you know, I've also had several people reach out to me who are intimidated from coming to meetings, not because not because they're necessarily gonna be videoed, but just because of the whole dissension around it. And they don't wanna be in that negative space. I mean, several people reach out to me about that. I know you have as well. The other thing I just wanted to, I think you kind of touched on it, but the city attorney can add if he feels I say anything incorrectly here, but it's not impinging on your free speech right to video the meeting. We are allowed to put reasonable requirements around it. Is that?
That's accurate.
And then just as a matter of, to actually circle this back to actually things that are important and actual business, I just wanted to, I've been contacted by a couple people this week. Again, it falls into the issue of encroachments. You know, I know we talked in, I think it was 2018, about the boulders on the, right up against the side of the road. I had a resident who, I don't remember if he said he actually hit it or if he just came close to hitting it and wanted to know what we could do about removing them. And I kind of explained to him that it falls into this whole gray area of not gray area, but unregulated area, I guess, of encroachments, where we've been trying to, for 2 years now, to try to get an inventory of encroachments so that we can make a reasonable encroachment policy. So I'm kind of just bringing it up again, because I know the last time we talked about it was in the fall, and we talked about having the code enforcer begin to work on the inventory again in March, and we're in March now, and coincidentally, like I said, I got a couple of contacts from residents this past week.
Yeah, so Steve and I actually recently talked about this, and he already has a good idea where most things are, so we are gonna be looking for council input on how much you wanna go down this rabbit hole. One big thing we're willing to do is if you guys feel inclined, and we make it a policy that they can't be there, we have no issue, at least for like the first 6-8 months, maybe this summer we actually start enforcing it next year, just doing a big education campaign. It's just like a lot of things in the city, it's probably one of those things where if we start forcing it, we're gonna get the issue, all of these wrecks have been here for 30 years, what do you do with them? So, council decides to go do that policy, we don't have an issue, we'd rather ease into it.
But obviously, it's not just the rocks, it's
Yeah,
the
that's a good
gazebos
example,
and, people who are using city property as their driveway and all that, all those other issues that we get contacted from on a regular basis. Okay, I think that's all I have.
I have a couple things. One is I wanna make the statement that council meetings, all council meetings, planning commission meetings, it's in the best interest of everybody in the city that people feel comfortable coming to these meetings. It's in the best interest of people who are attending the meetings to behave in a way that is welcoming and not putting people on edge or making them feel attacked or intimidated, because we want everybody's voices to be heard. And behaving in ways that makes people feel like they're being intimidated silences people. And if we want more engagement, if we want more people to show up, if we want more voices to be heard, then it's the responsibility of the council to set the example, to create that environment, but it's also the responsibility of residents and people who attend the meetings to support that example. So I'm just going on record saying that. I want more people to come to these meetings. I'm very appreciative and thanks so much for all the residents who live on San Jose who came out to have their voices heard. Hopefully you felt heard. I hope you feel like it's everybody up here, the three of us that are gonna end up having to vote on this, along with the other two council members, are struggling to decide what's the right thing to do here. Nobody's come to a conclusion yet, and this is why we will have 2 weeks to think about it, 2 weeks to consider other ideas or how to address the request from public safety, and also the appeals from the people that live in that neighborhood. So I hope you feel like your voices are heard. I definitely heard it, and I really appreciate you being here, and I look forward to seeing you in 2 weeks. I'm sure you will be there. You have been here every time. Like and Ms. Susanna's comments, she implied that I thought she was implying that I said that people who live on San Jose had not been at meetings before. If I said that, I misspoke. I know you had been here. The Danielses has definitely been here. The Wardlows have been here. And other people that live in that neighborhood have been here every single time this issue has come up. So it is not lost on me. I recognize you. And I appreciate you making sure that your voice is heard. I hope you also, I know it's frustrating to have this conversation over and over again, but I hope that you heard that we really do need to consider it again this time because of the construction having the impact on the crossovers. That's really gonna have it changes a lot of things about how the public safety officers can address emergencies. So we have to at least have the conversation. That's it, that's all I have, thank you.
Thank you. Do you all have anything? And we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you all for coming out.
Thank you.
Did you recognize me?
Yes, when you said the
Okay,
name, I'm
yes,
like, I know
yes,
exactly
yes,
who that
yes,
is.
yes. You with the Simons, right?
Yes.
Yeah.